impact is really important to me. And I think when I think about the type of capital that we're managing and the impact of that capital, it doesn't keep me up at night, but it does make me happy with the work that we're doing, because the impact of like our investments ultimately leads to teachers, firefighters, and other people that are come from similar beginnings as myself being more well off if our fund does well.
All right, welcome back to episode 13 of Karma Kast. Today I have with me an amazing individual, Serge Gaba, 29 years old?
Yes, sir.
29 years old, vice president of a $60 billion fund at Oak Hill Advisors. Welcome to the show, Serge. How are you doing today?
Thank you.
Look, I sounded professional right there.
I'm blessed. Thank you so much for having me.
Good to have you, brother. I met you also at this conference. It was called Multifamily Mastery. There was not much mastery there. It was a bunch of multifamily talk, but it wasn't even multifamily basics, but they called it multifamily mastery. But anyway, the conference was whatever. I'm glad I met you there though, and good to have you, and I love to share, the journey of people like yourself, you know what I mean, who are, what I see is successful people, people who are cut different from, just kind of the median. Tell me a little bit about your journey, your background, where you grew up, that kind of thing. How'd you become vice president of Oak Hill Advisors, at this ripe age of 29?
Yes.
But you did it when you were 28?
Yep.
Okay. It's very young to be at a position like that, don't you think?
Yeah. I think I'm definitely humbled. I come from very humble beginnings. So my parents are West African. I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, and Allentown, Pennsylvania. So growing up, it was a struggle, right? I saw my parents kind of do everything that they could to provide opportunities for me and my siblings. So I'm the oldest of 6.
Wow.
So I think what motivates me is kind of that, having so many people that look up to me as like an example. So I think everything that I do is, 1, to be an example for them, and 2, legacy, I think, is a really big thing for me. Having a legacy for my family, and then having a legacy for the next generation. So like you, I think I'm really inspired by what you've done for your family, just kind of talking to your son and like the legacy of kind of like what he has, you being able to pass that down to him, and him having an opportunity to kind of build something. So I'm really inspired by that, and thank you for providing an example for somebody like me, because that's ultimately something that I want to do for my kids and for the next generation.
Right.
So,
well, I'm inspired by you. I just want to let you know I'm inspired by you and where you are. And tell us more. I'm sorry to interrupt.
It's all right.
I just got to say that.
So yes, I grew up in Newark, New Jersey. I was there for elementary and middle school. And after a while, Newark became a little bit of a dangerous place, and I had a lot of friends that were getting into situations that my parents didn't want me to be a part of. So they ended up moving us to Allentown, Pennsylvania. It's like 45 minutes away from here. I went to Parkland High School and met some really good people there. And then after Parkland, I went to Penn State University. Proud Penn Stater.
Oh, yeah.
So we are to all my Penn Staters that are watching and listening. And love Penn State. Was a part of a lot of really great organizations there. Had the honor of becoming a brother of a fraternity called Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. And I think that was one of the first organizations that taught me the importance of kind of surrounding yourself around people that are motivated and that are driven. So being a part of that, everybody was kind of cut from the same cloth, right? Like you and I really focused and motivated to kind of provide better opportunities for themselves and their families and things like that. And that, like growing up, it wasn't an environment that I was kind of exposed to. So they kind of taught me the importance of kind of surrounding yourself around people that are pushing you to be the best version of yourself. So graduated from Penn State and had the honor of becoming Penn State's homecoming king as well. So that's why I'm a big Penn Stater everywhere I go.
All right. Oh, wow.
So I graduated from Penn State, and while I was there, one of the internships that I had was working at a firm called Accenture. So it was a consulting firm, and what we did is we provided advice to financial services firms. So my focus was financial services. So I was advising firms on how to structure their organizations, how to go to market, new products, things like that. And it was a really eye-opening experience.
How old were you at?
Around 20.
Okay.
So it was a really eye-opening experience because I was seeing like the largest organizations in the world, $50 billion organizations, and seeing the things that they were doing, the markets that they were serving. And it was things that I wasn't exposed to growing up. Like I mentioned, I come from really humble beginnings. So seeing kind of some of the things that they were doing that were working well, it helped me kind of like see what I wanted to do ultimately when I kind of led a firm, and ultimately when I started a firm. What things were they doing well? What things did I want to emulate? And what things weren't they doing well? What mistakes were they missing? Because like as a consultant, usually when you come in, it's when things aren't going well. So I saw a lot of things like that they weren't doing well, things that I didn't want to do, and it helped me kind of learn from the mistakes of others. And it was like $1 billion mistakes, right? So problems that I eventually would want to solve for myself and for organizations. So that was my first experience in like financial services and in consulting. I learned a lot, had some really good experiences. So although I was studying information science technology, that was like my first experience, like knowing that I wanted to do like business. So I studied.
So how'd you even get into financial services coming from an information science background?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we had a career fair, and I talked to a lot of different companies, and they were like the company that like really piqued my interest. So I studied information science technology because it was kind of the thing that my dad told me to study. So he came from a generation where, and his background was play the safe bet, and information science technology, when I was kind of growing up, was one of those areas that like you couldn't fail from studying information science technology.
Okay.
And for his kids, he wanted us to go down a path that he knew we were going to be successful. So his advice to me was study information science technology. And at the time, I didn't know what I wanted to do for sure. So that's how I ended up studying information science technology. And then at the career fair, I talked to a bunch of like information science technology companies, and then ultimately like accidentally ran into this company that was doing consulting. And we ended up talking, and like what they were kind of talking about seemed really interesting. So every couple months, they were advising a lot of really large organizations. They were sitting with CFOs and CEOs, and I was like, this sounds like pretty cool. This sounds pretty cool, something that I'd be interested in doing. So kind of told them a little bit about my background, my story, and honestly, they took a bet on me.
They did.
They took a really big bet on me because I didn't have a financial services background. They rolled the dice. So they took a really big bet on me, and I had an internship.
They must have saw that spark in your eye that I'm looking at right
now. I don't know what it was. I mean, I'm a really big faith person. I believe in God, and I think it was partially that, and it was partially them kind of seeing something that maybe they thought they could develop as well. And I think that was one of the key moments in my life, because had I not gone down that path, I don't know if I'd be where I am today.
Yeah.
I surely wouldn't be. So I did that internship my junior year summer, and I was working with many large. I had one project with a very large financial services client. They had they maybe had, I think their market capitalization was about 100 billion at the time. And now they're one of the top 5 financial services firms in the world. And I learned a lot about like how these firms like operate. And I was sitting with some of these top executives of this firm, and the impact that I had at that internship, and I was really like humbled by it, because I was like, how could me, someone from the beginnings that I come from, be in these rooms with some of these people that have been building these companies for generations, right? Mm-hmm. So it was really humbling to be in those rooms, and I liked the work that I was doing. So I realized that that's what I wanted to do, like post graduation. So that summer made me realize that consulting is what I wanted to do. And so when I went back to Penn State, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. So after graduation, I was lucky enough to get a full-time offer. I think they rolled the dice again, the same dice that they rolled. They did it again and gave me a full-time offer. So I started there after graduation, and was there for about 5 years. And then after graduating, was there for about 5 years, and I was recruited 5 years in by one of the firms that we were advising, Oak Hill Advisors. So they are a private credit-based alternative asset management firm. So what that means is they raise capital from institutional investors. So things like teachers, pension funds, firefighter funds, and sovereign wealth funds. So one of our clients is the Saudi Arabian Wealth Fund. So they have trillions of dollars that they look to invest, so we raise money from like those type of organizations, and then we then use that money and invest it as debt to organizations. So for example, if your company were looking to buy real estate,
Right.
and you were looking for debt, you would come to a firm like Oak Hill, and we would lend you the money to buy more real estate. But most of our clients are we're a large cap firm. So we typically work with organizations that are about 100 billion or more in market cap. And that's kind of some of the work that we've done. So started there and
So you have to have 100 billion market cap in order to get money from you guys?
No, it depends on the deal.
What do I got to be? Just tell me who I got to be.
So that I was recruited there about like 5 years in, and I think they took a really big bet on me too, because I didn't have the experience for the role for sure, but I think we meshed really well when it comes to like personality styles. I think the people that I kind of interviewed with there, they were relatively young, and they wanted somebody that was hungry and was ambitious, and started there about a year and a half ago, and have been kind of learning a lot.
So I feel like a lot of responsibility managing a fund that big. You know, it's like you've got all these other people's money, especially pension funds. You know, these people really, really rely on that money. Does that keep you up at night any time, or do you sleep pretty good, or what?
I think it definitely does. Impact is really important to me, and I think when I think about the type of capital that we're managing and the impact of that capital, it doesn't keep me up at night, but it does make me happy with the work that we're doing, because the impact of like our investments ultimately leads to teachers, firefighters, and other people that come from similar beginnings as myself being more well off if our fund does well. So I think it motivates me as an investor to want to be successful. It's one thing to want to be successful for yourself. It's another thing to want to be successful for others.
So in looking to invest funds, like what are your criteria? What do you look for? What are like home runs, you know, in terms of investment?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think one of the big things is having a history of doing the things that you want to do. I know you mentioned that like you were looking to purchase a really large real estate deal. And one of the things that the banks ask you, right, is what's your history? And can you prove to us that you've done something like this before? So, having a history of kind of doing the things that you're looking to do is one big thing. And then another really big thing is like the team, right? Are you surrounded by people that are really passionate about the things that they want to do? So I think those are the two really big things. And of course, the numbers have to make sense, right? The financials of the deal, there's a lot of modeling involved, things like that. And then we have a lot of in-house proprietary tools as well that kind of analyze the deal for us. But outside of like, you know, the numbers making sense, it's really important to have a good team, and it's really important for you to have a history and a good track record.
You guys are using regenerative AI or AI in different forms already? Probably.
It's on the way. It's on the way. Yeah. So we have a lot of proprietary tools that we store the data of all of our past transactions. So this is 20 plus years of transactions, and now we're looking to kind of employ AI to kind of see what are the trends in the deals that have been successful, what are the trends in the deals that have kind of blown up.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. And using AI to kind of really do more of those deals that are successful.
What's your work week look like, you know, in terms of just hours and things of that nature? Is it 9 to 5 like regular, or like you work crazy hours, or?
Yeah, so
is it fluid? Or?
It's pretty fluid. I think it's probably like 8 to 8 these days. So
12-hour days, 5 days a week.
5 days a week. Yeah. Luckily, I don't have to work any weekends these weeks. So it's been good for that. But yeah, it's about 8 to 8. A lot of meetings, a lot of like presentations, Excel, things like that. But it's rewarding. So
do you ever work from home too, or is it all?
Yeah, so we're in 4 days a week now, remote 1 day a week. So luckily on Fridays, I get to be home spending time with family and friends.
Gotcha. You're supposed to be working Friday, right? So what else? So that the fun thing obviously keeps you busy, you know. Oak Hill Advisors, vice president, and then vice president, you have to manage other personnel too, or like, you know, or look in terms of the structure of the company and stuff too, or.
Yeah, yeah,
What all
yeah.
like what are your responsibilities outside of like managing money
Yeah, so
that you got to deal with?
It's-
And you have. I got to ask this. You're 29. Is there people that like older people that like like how do you deal with that whole thing? Because other people like this guy's 29 years old, he's the vice president. Like, I gotta ask you that.
Yeah.
Forget everything else. Like let's get to the real.
Yeah,
like how you had to face like not like it's like what is ageism or something like that? What's the word called? Like this is young buck telling me what to do. Where he come from? Did you have to?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of people, right, that I think there's a lot of things about me that make people question if I'm qualified for the role. And I think ultimately it's like getting to know them and helping them understand like that I belong here. And then also like figuring out what type of things that like we resonate with on a personal level. So luckily I think the people in my firm, they're all pretty cool.
They know you by now. They're like, but initially when you first came into a position like that, like challenges with personnel type of, just like egos or things like that. How'd you maneuver?
Yeah. So definitely a lot of all of those things. I just tried to figure out like what type of things could I relate to them on. Like you mentioned, there's a big age gap between myself and a lot of other senior individuals. So I was trying to figure out like what type of things do we connect on, what type of things like do we resonate together on. And then like once I build a relationship with them and they saw like my work product,
right.
I think they
now you have a track record. Now they're like, we're not just rolling dice on this guy. This guy's actually
have a track record.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So now you've shown improved, but like initially probably was, you had to like stand up for yourself.
Yeah. It was a lot of small projects at first and a lot of training at first. And I think they invest a lot in their people too, right? I can't say I came in there having all the answers. I think like the first like month was like shadowing a lot of people at the firm, understanding what everybody does. Okay. And then it was like small project, and then building a track record like you were saying, and then now building credibility at the firm.
So do you guys like direct lend to like multifamily projects or real estate projects or?
Yeah, so I'm trying to get us to do more multifamily. We don't do a lot of multifamily now.
Right.
It's a lot of like mergers, acquisitions. We're lending to like for an example, right? If you had a company, you were looking to buy another company and you had some debt and some equity, we would lend you the debt. So it's more of like those type of deals. I'm trying to get us to do a little bit more multifamily. So if I have more luck with that, you'll be the first call.
Yeah, let me know. Let me know. I'll be waiting. So Saudi Arabia, did you ever go there or no?
Not yet.
No? I want to go there. I want to go to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, they've done so much there. It looks so cool. Yeah. It's one of the places on my bucket list.
So you also, other than the fun, you have like travel company or something you were saying? How'd you get into that?
Yeah. So I have a travel company. Myself and James, who's also in the room, we both love traveling. I got into that because travel has always been a really big thing. I think one of the reasons James and I really connect well is that we both come from backgrounds where we didn't travel a lot growing up. So once we got the opportunity to travel, we like fell in love with it. I think it was a mixture of like the culture, the experiences, and the food.
Travel for us on Sunday was like going down to the art museum and hanging out in front of that fountain.
You and I both.
Or going to see some relatives or friends of my parents in New Jersey. But yeah, I get it.
That was me as well. Going to see some family was traveling for us growing up. So when I was in college, I took one of my first trips, spring break, junior year of college. We went to Cancun. And I had a big friend group, and they asked me to organize the trip.
Was James there too in that group?
He wasn't there. He wasn't there. We did ultimately end up taking a trip together to DR like a couple of years later.
Okay.
But that trip specifically, it was a spring break trip.
You both lost your travel virginity to Mexico.
Easy trip.
And then what happened? So how'd you get into the travel thing from there? Like what you started a travel company when?
Yeah. So junior year, we organized a trip to Mexico. They asked me to kind of lead a lot of the planning. And then when I got there, I just fell in love.
Was this for the fraternity you were in, or?
No, the fraternity, a lot of my fraternity brothers were there.
Right.
So one of my closest friends in my fraternity, Joe, he was on the trip. And maybe like 8 or 9 other of my fraternity brothers were there. So they were probably a good portion of the group, but there's also some friends like outside of the fraternity too. So we took that trip to Cancun, fell in love with like traveling ever since then. Like the culture was amazing, the food was amazing, and probably the most important to me was like getting to spend time with like friends abroad and like getting these new experiences together. I think relationships are very important to me, and it's one thing to build relationships abroad because I feel like you have more time to spend together.
So how often do you travel abroad, like outside the States?
Yeah, so now I'm probably doing like 5 to 6 trips a year.
Wow.
So my travel company does 3 to 4 trips a year, and then outside of that, try to.
So the trips, it sounds like the travel company does trips. It's like a come on, like anybody can join the trip kind of thing, like a group trip.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. So, so we started doing the group trips in.
How many people? Like, what are we talking?
Right now, we're about 100 to 150 people.
Like they all traveling at the same time?
Yeah. So
and you manage that?
Yes. Yeah. So we do everything. We do everything from like planning.
I like the 2 people trips, just me and Ruby, me and my wife. It's just 2 people. It's easy to manage.
Number 1 answer on the board.
But 100 people, man, I can't even do. We have 11 of us in the family. Sometimes we go, but they're nice, you know. But like 100, I can imagine going with 100 group of people.
Yeah, it's not easy. I think we rely a lot on the people on the ground, the people that kind of know the areas that we're traveling.
And what kind of countries? Throw us on some names for me.
Yeah, so where have we been recently? We've been to Croatia, Thailand, Jamaica. We're going to Costa Rica in like 2 weeks. We're going to Barbados in November. Next year, we're looking to go to South Africa. And a couple other places. So we try to.
And they're all like your age group type of thing, or some old people like me, or what?
I think all ends of the spectrum.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'd say most people are like my age group, but we've had people all ends of the spectrum travel with us for sure.
And what, you book the flights and everything?
No, so we let them book their flights.
Okay, so you just set up the kind of like the retreat basically. When we get there, we meet at this spot, and then you take it from there, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So we get everybody's like information prior to, and then we work with our local contacts in the countries that we're visiting to set up everything. The goal is that like the moment you book, you don't have to worry about anything, and the moment you get down there, you don't have to worry about anything.
Yeah, you roll thick though. 100 people, that's rolling thick through a country.
Yeah. So it's fun because we get to meet a lot of like local people and like the government and things like that.
Oh, really?
Usually, like, you know, when you're coming with that many people, you like typically want to check in with like the tourism board. You want to check in with like the local politicians, things like that, just to make sure, one, you're doing the right things, and then two,
so
like
when you meet with the local politicians, they ever try to shake you down because you know politicians, they just want money. They just want money. They didn't shake you down. Like, I'm
West African, so I know all about
that. we got 100 people coming from the States. We gotta get some money out of this. Or they just smile and be like, "Oh, welcome to our country."
Yeah, the politicians. Luckily, I haven't had any experiences like that, but I did have some people try to shake me down in Dominican Republic. We could definitely get into that story another time.
Yeah, people know about the DR. Yeah. So, you go back to your country? Your family's from West Africa. What's the country's name?
Benin and Togo. Yeah.
So is that 2 different names, or 2 different countries, or is it one country? Or
2 different countries. Yeah, my dad is from Togo and my mom is from Benin.
Okay.
Yeah. So I try
smaller countries, like landmass. Like.
Yeah. They have Togo probably has about 8 million people. Benin probably has about like 10 million people. So relatively small compared to the
size of Philly, right?
Yeah. Might be the size of New York City, yeah.
Right, Philly, New York, yeah.
So probably small in terms of like their neighbors, like close to Ghana, close to Nigeria, which have like.
How often you go back there?
I try to go once a year.
Right.
I love West Africa.
And that's a great thing going to. I watch a lot of West African movies and shows, to be honest, on Netflix and stuff. That's the one thing when you go back and to your roots and stuff and the heritage, it keeps you grounded. You know, it keeps you humble. It keeps you. It just, you know, it does a lot.
Yeah.
What would you say about that?
Yeah, definitely keeps you grounded. It keeps you humble. And then it makes you realize the opportunities that you're afforded,
right?
Like living in a country like the U.S.
Yeah.
And
the U.S. is not perfect, but in some ways, this is like paradise if we fix a couple issues. You know what I mean? Like we got our issues everywhere, you know. But compared to like other places, when you really, a lot of people, you know, it's become popular in the last few years. So like, shit on the U.S. kind of like people that are from the U.S. But like, have you traveled? Have you been anywhere else? Like, you know what I mean? Like, go. And it's one thing to travel. It's another thing to go and live there for a few months anywhere else, and you get to really understand. And there's a lot of obviously expatriates of people that live in different countries and they enjoy their lives too. But you get the best of both worlds when you have, coming from the U.S., you get the financial stability and things of that nature, and then you can go out and explore the world as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's one thing to visit a country. I agree with that. It's one thing to visit a country, another thing to like be there for a while.
All the time, and the stresses that go along, running, simple things like running water, electric, coming and going, safety, security sometimes, all kinds of different things,
Yeah.
So anything else? You got a fund. I mean, you're vice president of this $1 billion fund that has this credit fund, and with institutional capital, you got this travel company. What else you got going on? Anything else?
Yeah, real estate. Really passionate about real estate. So my goal is eventually open my own real estate private equity firm. So trying to learn as much as I can at Oak Hill to eventually build a large real estate portfolio to eventually be able to pass on to the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
I think we were talking a little bit earlier about legacy. I think ultimately I want to build something for myself, for my family, and the next generation.
Right.
And then also just learning as much as I can.
Let me ask you, where the light bulb come on regarding real estate? When did that happen for you?
That's a good question. I think I was always exposed to real estate. Kind of growing up, my dad had like a 2-family real estate property, and I used to like help him a lot. I was a pseudo property manager, which I'm sure your kids probably heard too.
No, they didn't have that, but I grew up in that. Yeah.
Oh, you grew up in it? Yeah.
I grew up in it. That's why I wanted to get away from it. I saw it all.
So kind of growing up, I think I was always exposed to real estate, and being hands-on with it, like mowing the lawn, cleaning up, things like that. It pushed me away for a little while.
Exactly.
But it wasn't until like after I graduated college, started I'll try to learn a little bit more about like how to build that legacy. What are things that you can like kind of pass on to the next generation, that I came upon real estate. And it was like Andrew Carnegie's quote, like 90% of millionaires are built through real estate. I don't know if that statistic is really true, but I do know that one of the best ways to build legacy and kind of pass it on to the next generation is through real estate.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of brought me back to real estate. But now having real estate in a way where like you can automate it, build processes, so you're not actually the ones that at the property doing a lot of the work, has been kind of like seeing that side of it has been really helpful. And then so coming back to it, I think the biggest thing for me was, how do I build a legacy that I can kind of pass on to my children? And then also, like I mentioned, I'm the oldest of 6. How do I build something that I can kind of teach my younger siblings to help them kind of set their family up for success as well?
Right.
My goal is like for my kids not to start from ground zero. And then for I have a younger brother as well, to like have something that I can teach him so that he can start off at a better place. And I have a close friend, Seven. He said something in an interview once. He's like, I'm still in my prime, so I'm still going to be trying to do the best for myself and for my family, but want to kind of pass as much on so that he can my younger brother can start off at a better place, was kind of like why I wanted to get into real estate. And I'd say it was like maybe about 2021 that I purchased my first multifamily property in Allentown, Pennsylvania, where I grew up. I know we had spoken a little bit about that. And then ever since then, it's been a snowball effect of kind of trying to grow and build my portfolio.
Right. Awesome. What's your message, man? If you were going to give a message to either your generation or just the world in general, what would you say? What's my message?
I think it's 2 things. One is just the importance of legacy, and the importance of trying to build a legacy for yourself and for the next generation. And then for the second thing is trying to find your passion. I think divine intervention is real once you're following your passion. And like I mentioned, a lot of people have taken chances on me, and I think that's because I've been trying to follow my passion. So that'd be my 2 biggest messages: trying to build a legacy and following your passion.
Wow. Well, it's been really good, listening to you, and wealth of knowledge, wealth of information. I'm sure you've come far already at such a young age. I'm sure you're going to go much, much further. And I think hopefully when you get much, much further along, you won't forget the small people like myself.
Stop it. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, my brother. Appreciate you.
Cheers.
Cheers.